Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. When you think of surprise teams from the 2019 college football season, Minnesota has to be towards the top of your list. PJ Fleck shocked the nation by leading the Golden Gophers to an 11-2 record, including a 9-0 start. They were just one win away from making the Big Ten championship, but they capped off their season with a 31-24 upset win over Auburn in the Outback Bowl. It was one of the best seasons in Minnesota football history, and certainly an unprecedented one. And what's scary about all of this is while 2019 was amazing, 2020 has the chance to be even better for the Golden Gophers as they return so much production, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They returned Tanner Morgan, one of the better quarterbacks in the entire Big Ten, certainly when it comes to accuracy. They returned Muhammad Ibrahim at running back, and Morgan gets his top two wide receivers back, or two of the top three wide receivers back, I should say, and Chris Ottman-Bell and Rashad Bateman. The defense, who ranked 10th in the nation in total defense last year, is going to be very, very strong once again. They have a couple more pieces to replace there, but still has the chance to be a top 25 unit, and Minnesota is certainly a contender in the Big Ten West once again. So today we're taking a look at their 2020 schedule. We're not predicting any games. Those will come much later. And certainly they're going to be fun ones this year. But we had the Golden Gophers pegged as our 14th ranked team in our way too early top 25. And they open up the season with some easy wins, or some easy games we should say, against Florida Atlantic and Tennessee Tech. Of course, you can never take any game for granted. You can never pencil in automatic wins because there are no such things. But we would expect the Golden Gophers to get the job done in the first 2 weeks of the season. But before we jump farther into the schedule, the one thing that really sticks out to me, and maybe it did for you as well, was that Minnesota doesn't get a bye week until after 10 games. Think about that. The Golden Gophers play 10 games before they get a bye week on November 14th. Last year, the majority of college football teams were given 2 bye weeks. Just the way the schedule worked out. It's not going to be the case this year. So Minnesota will start play on September 3rd and will not get a week off until November 14th. Big slate of conference games for them. Big non-conference matchup against BYU. This team is going to be run down. And those things can take a toll on you. Those things can take a toll on a football team. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that kind of factors into Minnesota's success in 2020. 10 straight games before a week of rest, before they get 2 final games in the Big Ten Conference before the postseason, and potentially a Big Ten championship appearance. So that's the first thing that really stood out to me. Something that's very important as well. They get that, jump into Big Ten play on September 18th, a Friday night matchup against Iowa. And this is kind of a revenge game, because as we mentioned, Minnesota started the season 9-0. Who was their first loss? Iowa at Kinnick Stadium, 23-19. That Hawkeyes defense was unbelievable. They really did a fantastic job of shutting down Tanner Morgan, shutting down this Minnesota offense that for the majority of the season racked up a lot of points and was so difficult to stop. Kirk Ferentz squad did a phenomenal job of that last year. Can they do it again this year on a Friday night at Minnesota? Home field advantage could play a major role in this one, and it's important for both of these squads to get an early conference win to their name, especially in what we've said is a relatively wide-open Big Ten West. You know, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, certainly going to be some of the front runners in that conference, in that division. And this could be a game that decides by the season's end who gets to go to Indianapolis to play in that Big Ten championship game. So a big game against Iowa here, and a very intriguing non-conference matchup against BYU. One of those teams, to me, that you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get from Kalani Sitake and the Cougars. They might come in and beat you, like they did to Wisconsin a few years ago, like they did to Tennessee last year, or they're also the type of team that might just fall to a random Mountain West team. You just never know. Minnesota does host the Cougars this year, though, and they are going to be, in my opinion, a team that can win anywhere from 7 to 9 games in 2020. They get Maryland on October 3rd, a team that Minnesota beat 52-10 last year. Terrapins had such a fast start to the 2019 season and then cooled off big time. Once they lost to Temple, things were really never the same for Mike Locksley's squad, especially offensively. After they scored, 70 points in week 1 and then 63 in week 2, and then kind of fell apart after that. They have to travel to Maryland, a team that should improve a little bit, but certainly not the most difficult on the schedule for the Golden Gophers. The key stretch for P.J. Fleck and his squad, the most important stretch for his squad in terms of trying to get to the Big Ten championship and maybe even being a playoff dark horse, begins here on October 10th. At Wisconsin, Michigan, at Illinois, at Michigan State. A lot of ats in there. 4 of those 5 games on the road, and that's just not favorable. Sandwiched in between those 2 road games is a home game against Michigan, who is going to be, supposed to be at least, one of the better teams in the Big Ten East this year if they can finally find some more offense, especially with the departure of so many stars, including quarterback Shea Patterson. But we'll begin here with the road game at Wisconsin. This is a revenge game for Minnesota, probably one they have circled on their calendars and have had circled on their calendars since the end of last season. Because last year at Minnesota, College Game Day was in town, and the winner between the Golden Gophers and the Badgers was going to the Big Ten championship game. And the Badgers came in there and won that game 38-17. Wasn't even close. So the Big Ten West was decided in the final week of the season, and Wisconsin came in and stole it away from the Golden Gophers. Had they won that game, had they upset Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, Minnesota would probably have been in the college football playoff. And that's just hard to believe. So this game is certainly a revenge game for Minnesota. It's going to be very difficult. Camp Randall Stadium, not an easy place to play. But Jonathan Taylor is gone. Wisconsin will somehow find the next best thing at running back. They always do. But early on, they might have to rely strongly on one of the best defenses in the country and Jack Cohn at quarterback. So it'll be a very interesting game here to see, can Minnesota's offense exploit that Wisconsin defense? Can they get anything going on the road? They then host Michigan. Host Michigan here. That Michigan game is going to be so big. East versus West, cross-division matchup. But if Minnesota were to lose this game here, say they are in fact 5-0, lose to Wisconsin 5-1, they already got a conference loss to their name. They really can't afford too many others. So Michigan at home going to be huge. And once again, we mentioned Michigan is a team that has struggled to win the big games under Jim Harbaugh, has struggled to really find consistency offensively. And with only 4 returning starters on offense this year, that could strongly benefit Minnesota. This is a Minnesota team that beat Penn State when they came into town last year as a top 4 team in the country, beat them by 5 points. This game could be very similar to that. It's in Minnesota. This is a game where home field advantage could be the difference maker, and luckily that's in favor of the Golden Gophers. Then in the next 4-game stretch here, we said 5 earlier, my mistake, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State, they travel to Illinois, who on paper you look at that and you say, all right, shoe-in win for Minnesota, who they beat the Fighting Illini 40-17 last year. But after that loss, after that 23-point loss, Illinois won 4 of their next 5 games. Illinois got to the postseason and played California in the Red Box Bowl. Lovie Smith's team really turned it around, and this is an Illinois team that in Champaign beat Wisconsin last year, 24-23. Fighting Illini are no longer a pushover, or no longer a team you're going to look at and say, all right, it's probably going to be a win for us. With this game being on the road, possibly coming off a very emotional win against Michigan, this is a trap game for Minnesota. One they cannot afford to overlook. One they cannot afford to come in and screw up and still somehow escape with a victory here. They're still going to have to bring their A game. So an interesting game here against Lovie Smith and the Fighting Illini. And then another road game, back-to-back weeks, at Michigan State to face off against Mel Tucker. We don't really know what to expect out of Mel Tucker at Michigan State this year. Mark D'Antonio shocked us all by stepping down. Spartans were rushing to find a great head coach to come replace him, and they were able to lure him away from Colorado. But we've said it before, the Spartans really haven't been the same since 2015 when they made the college football playoff. So a lot of unknowns there, but I do know this. East Lansing is not necessarily an easy place to play. And once again, when you got a team here that starting in October 3rd, and it really in the month of October, has to play 4 of their 5 games on the road, that can get worn down. 4 of those 5 games on the road and has yet to have a bye week, they can get run down. And you might be able to see some poor performances or maybe a few upset or trap games against what many would say are inferior opponents against Illinois or maybe even Michigan State. Trap games for Minnesota for sure. Certainly not ideal the way the schedule is lined up for them. After the Michigan State game, they play Purdue. Minnesota escaped Purdue last year early in the season 38-31. That was before Purdue went down with a bunch of injuries. And then Purdue didn't make the postseason with Jeff Brom and anything like that. Hopefully the Boilermakers will be more healthy this year. And if they're at full strength, then this game at Minnesota could be similar to that 38-31 game we saw last year. Score was a little more closer than the game really was, but still. Rondale Moore, you look at him, he's back, he's fully healthy. You get good quarterback play out of the Boilermakers. This is a team that could find themselves back in a bowl game. Luckily for Minnesota, they hosted. Then they finally get their bye week. After 10 straight games, they get their bye week. Face off against a Northwestern team that Minnesota beat by 16 and was just abysmal in the Big Ten last year. Surprising after landing Hunter Johnson and winning the West in 2018. And then close out the season against Nebraska, who Minnesota beat by 27 in 2019. At Nebraska, of course, not an easy place to play. Certainly won't be an easy place to play if Scott Frost finally figures it out in Lincoln and gets Nebraska to the postseason. If Nebraska has already clinched 6 wins or has 5 wins coming into this game, and of course the win over Minnesota would get them to bowl eligibility, this is a major trap game for Minnesota. Because Nebraska has some of the best, most loyal and passionate fans in all of college football, and that is not an easy place to play in the Big Ten. Of course, it has been for some in recent years as Nebraska has struggled for a while, but if they have 5 wins or more, this will be a very difficult season finale for PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers. Certainly not a game to overlook, and certainly a team under Scott Frost I do expect to finally kind of get over the hump and improve big time in 2020. The Football Power Index has Minnesota finishing 9-3. To me, that would be another fantastic year. A chance at back-to-back double-digit win seasons. A chance that if maybe they snag 1 win that the FPI has them losing, could get them back into the Big Ten Championship, or get them to the Big Ten Championship, I should say. Biggest games of the season, that 4-game stretch. Biggest game of the season in terms of trying to win the West, Iowa at home, Wisconsin on the road, Michigan at home. 2 of those 3 are at home. That's a big-time get for PJ Fleck. This team has the potential to be even better than the team that we saw in 2019 that went 11-2. 11-2. And the schedule, not that bad at all. The West is relatively wide open, but the Western Division not nearly as tough and competitive as the Eastern Division. 2 of their 3 biggest games are at home for the Golden Gophers. PJ Fleck is rowing that boat, and he's going to keep rowing it until they finally meet their goals, and that is getting to the Big Ten Championship and winning it. And there's a chance that they can maybe do that in 2020. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe. Check out everything down in the description below for some exclusive college football news, content, and offers you do not want to miss. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.